Okay, welcome to our Divergent discussion. I'm Michelle Ridsdale and I'm the founder of Kaboose. We're an inclusive, safe online community for neurodivergent people to connect, learn and thrive. And we are built by neurodivergent people for neurodivergent people. Just a reminder to everyone tuning in that we are recording this so that we can send it out to our audience who can't join us in person, and we'll also have time for questions at the end, so you can pop those into the chat and I'll be monitoring those. I'm very excited to introduce our guests to this discussion, Gil and his wife Carmella. So firstly, I'll introduce Gil. He has ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia and dysgraphia. He's the father of 3 neurospicy kiddos. One is autistic and all of them have ADHD and other learning difficulties. His wife, Carmella, is an OT. She has more than 25 years experience in the disability sector, working with paediatrics and now adults. She's now working as a disability practitioner in an Australian university. Gil has learnt the hard way how to study for exams and has taught himself how to study, which he still finds tricky, and he has to use his memory quite a lot. Last year, Gil and his wife opened an online store for neurodivergent kids and adults, selling fidget tools and IQ puzzles. So I'm personally really looking forward to hearing about their journey with their business. So Gil, you mentioned that you've found studying tricky, which means you have to rely on your memory a lot. Tell us more about the strategies that you found helpful for focusing when you're trying to learn something new.
Well, first of all, hi, good evening. So when I grew up at 6 or 7, I started noticing that things are a little bit different for me in terms of how I interact with other kids. And I found sometimes that it was difficult to find the right subject or the right thing to get to know them, or to sometimes I got in trouble because I couldn't keep my mouth shut or said the wrong thing and things like that. And so I got in trouble. And then later growing up at school, I was sent a lot to the principal's office, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what I did wrong. And I always thought that there's something wrong with me because 35, 40 years ago at schools, it wasn't so obvious, that the ADHD even existed. So I went from, class to class and from principal to principal, and then later sort of discovered ways and tactics, I would call it, to try to go around and manage those holes that were created because of the situation that I was. So I guess in terms of studying, what I found the easiest way for me was the repetitive thing, and I had to write it down. So if there was an exam about certain plants at a different subject, at botany or whatever it was, then I had to write the name of the plant, 100 times, whatever it was, to look at the picture and write it down until it got into my head. But once I had it inside, once it was in my head, it didn't go away.
Right.
That's part of the thing, to try to use the memory. I'm better, for me personally, I don't know if other people are the numbers, for instance. I don't forget faces, but I don't forget the numbers. I remember a lot of digits and different things. And I was just talking to Carmella before, when, just an example, if we go to Coles or Woolies and we look at a certain product, and I remember that how much it cost, the item, and then I look at the receipt at the end, and a few times, on a few occasions, at different shops at different times, I remember that the number didn't match the item that was on the shelf. So then we went back and we actually got a discount.
Great. I think I should go shopping with you more often, Gil.
So that's part of it. Right? What else?
What about, you talked about going from at school, like trying to sort of find strategies to focus. Do you remember how you did that? Or do you think that being late diagnosed, you've just kind of learnt to do the thing you do?
it, like I said, when growing up, I guess that part of my, because every ADHD, because the brain is wired differently, every ADHD is different in each different person. And my part was that sometimes or more often than not, the mouth speaks before the brain has a time to assess and think. And I'm still working on it. To be honest, I grew up without the medication, and it wasn't that common back then. And it was really hard learning, as you mentioned, the hard way. To be honest, I got some, when I was growing up, got a few smacks from my dad because it was not known back then, and if you don't behave, and then you get some smacks. But now I can thank him for that. I mean, I think that I became better person and more respectful, I guess, in those
a
because
different
of it.
time.
Yeah, different time, exactly, different times.
Yeah.
With focusing, I need, especially, I can go to today's, or these days, that when I come home from work and work is stressful and noisy, I need some time to myself. I need a few minutes to just have quiet. And Carmella says that we are, what do you call it? In the auto then inter, forget the word, sorry.
Sorry. No, your brain is right now.
We'll get there. But I'm okay with crowds. I'm okay to be around people. I'm okay things, but sometimes introvert. That's the word, you see. So introvert and extrovert. So it depends on the situation. But sometimes when it gets stressful and the noise is overwhelming, I just need to step aside and get myself out of that situation, so my brain can think of happy place or happy thoughts and sort of regroup. And sometimes even, these days where we go out for dinner with friends or family and it gets too noisy, then I'll say to Carmella that, sorry, I just gonna step out a bit and try to think, so I can get more, energy, so I can come back and not
keep going.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that the sensory overwhelm sometimes when there's sound, smells, noise, different tastes, our kind of sensory cup gets full, and, we do need to release that. And Megan has just said, that they agree in some situations, you can be extroverted. And I'm sure Gil was telling me about his great fundraising event this coming weekend, and I'm sure he'll be an extrovert then. But then you probably need the next day to crawl into bed or to be in a quieter place. And Megan says, crawling into your shell and being introverted for a while can sometimes help. We talk a little bit about stress, and you and I have talked before, Gil, about stress and focus sometimes go hand in hand. How do you notice when stress is sort of showing up, and how does it show up for you?
We discussed this, and no, look, Carmella is we've been over 20 years together and been married 18 years, so she definitely is the one who calms me down and brings me back to earth when I need to. I'm very enthusiastic of things, and I'm very, try to hyper focused, which is part of the ADHD, on something. And sometimes it's not the right time or the right place to do. And I'm so glad that I am thankful that I have Carmella to try to help me and bring me down to where I need to be in order to look at the broader picture rather than just focused on that certain thing. So in terms of trying to, when I feel stressed, I sometimes, there's a saying that you take it out on the people that you love. And, sometimes that happens. Not, I'm not happy about it, but sometimes because of stressed at work and customers yelling at you, and one of your workers cut a pipe in the middle and we had to call the fire brigade to close the street.
Oh no.
It happened. It was a gas pipe, by the way.
No.
Yeah, the whole street, the police, the ambulance, everyone came. They had the whole street. So that can get stressful. So you
It
just
can.
gotta breathe and then deal with the situation at the time.
Mm.
I think that one of the things that I deal with stress on the time, on the spot, quite well, but then I come home with that in me, and
Mm.
sometimes you take it out on your family, which I know it's not right, and it's not, but it happens. We're human, and we just gotta apologize or try to do something else in order to reduce the stress. But yeah, sometimes
Mm.
I feel that
It's
I'm
hard.
angry. I
Mm.
mean, now that you say, for the past, I don't know, 20 years since I know you, sometimes I try to, when I get angry, and, mainly, as a family, and mainly the stresses are work, and then the house
Mm.
going things, how you going to pay the bills,
Yes.
how you going to
Mm.
buy and put food on the table, things like that.
Mm.
I try, and I said this a few times to Carmela. I said, I'm leaving, and I try not to say something stupid that I will regret later. And
Mm.
I just cut myself from that situation, go out, go for a walk,
Mm.
go for a little drive, go for a run. And
Mm.
then when I'm a little bit more relaxed, then I come home, and then we can have a chat about it.
Yeah. It's a good
It
strategy.
hasn't happened for a while now. I think that mostly now I think we're in a good place.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
I mean, there's still stresses of how we're going to pay the bills. Living in Sydney is not easy.
Of course. Yes. And being a startup founder, there's
Yeah,
always challenges.
it's hard,
So
but
tell us
yeah.
about this business of yours. Tell us, you talking about, pipes and gardens. So I'm lucky I'm on the inside story. Gil, does have two businesses, I believe, but we're going to be talking about his fidgets and puzzles during this discussion. Tell us
Yeah.
how you
So
got started with that.
if I may just say, with the other business, the gardening, one of the things that I'm with the ADHD is that I feel really good outside. And I think that if I were always cooped inside because of the type of person that I am, I think I would be struggling. So with
Mm.
the ADHD, it helps me that the scenery changes, and it relaxes me. And this is one of the good things about being that. But with the fidget and the IQ puzzles, we thought when we opened it that I wanted to do something different. And because of our family, I don't know if there was a situation, the way that we are, with my disabilities or the learning difficulties and our kids, we thought that we might try to do something that will help them and get more, notice, and try to help other people that are dealing with similar situations. So we have. May I show the one of the things? Is that all right? The
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
show us. I said I need one because mine is very old and tatty.
So this is. I don't know if you can see. This is magnets, and it's like magnet balls,
Oh,
and
wow.
it has each one.
Right.
Yeah, and each one has a different texture
Amazing.
for sensory things. So I
That's
personally
awesome.
like this one. That's my favorite.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
always have it, and we
And
we
it's
sell.
soft. Is it
Yeah,
soft,
it's
Gil? Is
different.
it
Yeah,
soft?
different textures.
Yeah, great. Yeah, amazing.
And we have. Carmela likes this one, and our son, our oldest boy, he has this one. This
Ah,
one's like a Siamese
yeah,
balls, and it
yeah.
has. I don't know if you can hear the little noise that it
I
makes.
can hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So our son likes this one, and Carmela, you have that and at your work as well.
Yeah, I keep one on my desk at work.
She has it
Or
as well.
And how do you think fidgets, and I want to hear more about the puzzles too, but how do you find them helpful?
That's your area.
I for myself, I've been a fidgeter my whole life. I spent
Yep.
my life getting yelled at by my father because I would be playing, if I didn't have something else in my hands, I'd be playing with my hair or my necklace or something, always.
Yes. Twiddling.
And the more tired I am, the more I fidget. And it's
Ah,
very much about
interesting.
keeping my brain engaged in whatever I have to be doing. So
Yes.
when I'm at work, when I'm talking to students, I'll either have a pen in my hand writing notes. And I sort of said to someone the other day, I'm like, it's optics. It looks better to someone, it looks more professional. But if I'm sitting there writing notes, even though I can not read my own writing and I will never look at them again, then that I have
Yes.
something in my hand
Yeah.
to keep my hands busy, because that's how I make sure I'm actually engaged and listening to you.
Great. Yeah.
But I mean, I always also think about, I guess, properties of fidget tools, and
Mm.
what different people respond to is always different. So for
Yes.
me, I really like this one because it's got weight to it. It's metallic, it's a bit
Right. Yes.
heavy. And I find that the sort of that proprioceptive input is really helpful for me in keeping me in the moment. We have
Yep.
another one that's similar to it, that's a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, made of plastic, which I like as well, but not as much. I find
Okay.
I sort of,
Yeah.
almost forget that I've got it in my hand,
Yeah. Right.
and
Okay.
and my brain just sort of drifts away a little bit.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, but I mean, definitely, I think my experience, and I know that, I mean, there is a lot of research into this about the impact and the relationship between the hands and the brain, and how
Yeah.
much, how helpful it is when you're trying to learn something new and do it and retaining information, that having busy hands helps. And writing notes is one way to do it, but there's even research showing that doodling is better than sitting
Yeah.
with still hands in terms of
Yeah.
retaining
And
knowledge.
isn't it ironic? We used to get into trouble at school for
Yeah.
doodling or for doing something without paying attention.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah, I got in trouble every time that I looked not focused, but I remembered everything when I, just like you said, just
yes.
doodled, and I wasn't looking at the teacher, but I was listening, and
Yes.
I knew what she was talking about. So yeah, definitely agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. We have a comment which I will read from Liz. Thank you very much for your insight, Gil. Our son with ASD is almost 19. He's a master masker. Yes, we can all, I think, relate to that. Can be home devil and street angel. I love that analogy. He doesn't like to be bored and idle, but we see he needs that quiet processing time, but prefers to chat. We know he needs that downtime. How can we encourage him to do that? And what can we buy from you that may help for his age? He loves cooking. So maybe
Oh,
as we continue on, you could have a think about that. And we'll also be putting Gil's website in the chat towards the end, so you can have a look at that. But maybe tell us about the puzzles as well, Gil, because I know you've told me a little bit about that.
So we have a few different types of IQ puzzles that vary on, they have colors or shapes or different ways to solve them, that people would, different people would like different things as different brains work differently. So we have
Mm.
some ones that are with arrows. So the challenge is to work around and try to set it up in a certain way. Or there is a circuit
Okay.
one, so you have to try to feel and get into a full circuit. Most of them
Yeah.
have up 120 challenges. So when you
Right.
start easy, it reveals more of the answer, and as you get higher and higher in the levels and in the challenges, it gets more difficult. And I think the way that it works, it challenges the brain, and it's also for problem solving. And they're good because it gets the younger kids off the screen, because I know it's
Mm.
challenging to get them off the iPad these days and off the Xbox and things like that. And it's small enough that you can travel with it. So on the plane, in the
Yeah.
car, just waiting in a bus stop, like it's small enough that you can just put it almost in your pocket, but in your bag.
Amazing. I love that. So I guess you've got Camilla sitting right next to you, so she might answer this, but I'm interested in both your perspectives. So having a partner with deep OT experience, which we all envy, because I know OTs have been my favourite people on our journey with our son, Nicholas, and we've had some very beautiful OTs in our lives, which we're very grateful for. But what have you learned from Camilla, about managing your attention and stress in everyday life. You sort of alluded to the fact she helps you, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how.
So it comes in, as I mentioned before, that I have, because my brain works very fast, and we can see it with our youngest child, that his brain is constantly working and constantly is thinking of things. And the same as me, I constantly have these ideas of, for me, business wise, how do we promote the business? How do we do something that is going to have an effect? How do we get this to the next challenge? I love starting up something and seeing it to get to a better place, and then going on to the next challenge, sort of. And I don't know if it's good or not, but I sort of lose a little bit of interest as it gets to a certain destination. I want to start something else, and seeing the new challenge. That's what excites me, the next challenge, the next thing. And where Carmela comes in, as she said, stop, have a little think about it. What's your next move? Is this the right time? Is this what we need right now as a family? She puts everything, and there is a lot of mental load on her as a mother and as my wife, to try to organize my thoughts and the kids' thoughts, and it does fall on her. And again, I'm thankful for those, for her to be part of in my life, so she can set things in order, I guess.
Things on the straight and narrow, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we are more, I think, men, and I think myself, like I'm more of not a gambler, but I'm happy to try new things, and we'll see where it goes. And like, she'll be right.
Mm.
And I think that Carmela, with the things that's going on in our life and the family, she's sort of, slowly, it's not a no, like, we're not going to get there, but it's a little bit more organized, the way to
I
do.
think more holistic usually. He tends to, I think, you used the word hyperfocus before on previous. He tends to hyperfocus on whatever is the idea in his head in that moment, whereas I tend to really have that more holistic overview of our life, the kids' lives, what's going on in his business as well, like really being able to try like that, seeing all of it and
Yeah.
using that to ground us a bit
Yeah. Great.
and to slow the runaway
Yeah.
train.
Yes. Well, I think that's the thing with the neurodivergent brain. We get kind of hyper focused, and you do need to sometimes stand back and look at the whole system as a whole.
Yeah.
You mentioned, we talked about this in your bio, that, the kiddos are neurodivergent and have some learning challenges. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've advocated or supported them in the school system?
That's all me.
Yes.
It,
Okay.
I'm happy.
Please share.
I'm happy to follow Carmela with that. I'll support her with
Okay.
whatever she
Good.
needs.
but that was it. I
Excellent.
mean, even I would say I could see the signs and symptoms. I mean, my background has opened my eyes a lot. So I could see signs and symptoms a long time before we could get a diagnosis. None of
Mhm.
our children, I mean, they all have ADHD, but none of them are, and combined type actually, but none of them are hyperactive in that very visible hyperactive way. It's much more the fidgetiness and things. And so there were many years of I was seeing issues and talking to teachers about issues and advocating that they do things in the classroom to support them without being able to get a diagnosis, because as you would know, with ADHD particularly, you needed to be able to demonstrate the impact across more than one domain of life. And that second domain in a child is typically in the classroom. And when teachers don't see it, it becomes really challenging. And so, I'd be advocating for things to support them without that piece of paper that honestly we shouldn't need. I often feel like we really shouldn't need it,
Exactly.
but we do, that says this brain is different. But I mean, we've had our challenges, years of challenges. I mean, this is my background. I've worked with other kids for years in it, talking to teachers about, fidgeting's not bad. The main thing we want to really look at with children who are very hyperactive and need to fidget is how do they do it without negatively impacting on the learning experience of the kids around them. We don't want to stop them. We want to maybe teach them ways to do it that are productive for them. And with all that, I went into a meeting with one of my children's teachers quite many years ago, and he actually looked at me when I made some suggestions about what could be done in the classroom, and he looked at me and said, "What do you know? You're just his mother."
Oh.
Which is, as
Yeah.
it happens, the other teacher that was in the meeting happened to know me very well. And so I didn't have to open my mouth, and she turned around and was like, firstly, they're never just the mother. They are the expert on their own child. And this mother gets paid to give her opinion on this stuff. So please be quiet and listen. But I think that attitude is something we always have to address as well. This idea that as parents,
so common. Mm.
we actually do know what works for our young people. We've been watching them. I'm educating it. Not everyone is. But even those who haven't, they've been doing it. They've been advocating. They've been teaching them strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, neurodiversity is genetic. They've been doing it for themselves and then teaching their kids what works, even when they don't have a diagnosis.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, but every year we start afresh a little bit, going back in with, well, this worked last year, this bit, this hasn't been working anymore. What else can we do?
I just can add to what Carmella said, that I think that being a parent, that when you are in this situation and you don't think that something is working, continue fighting and don't accept it just because the teacher said something and it doesn't work, then continue fighting for it. And we had problems with one of the kids, that he was bullied what he was for his learning difficulties and all this, and the school didn't so much accepted it or saw it or wanted to see it, and I don't know what, but Carmella was fighting, and at one point I as with my ADHD and guns blazing, and I had enough. This been going on for almost 2 years, that situation. Yeah, almost 2 years, and I said, like, enough is enough, and I started pushing, and maybe it wasn't the right way to go about it, but we as parents, where we trust our most beloved and cherished thing in the world to go to school, then we want them to come home and feel safe and not have to cry with them and not have to feel like no one is listening to us. And so I can say to other parents and other people, just keep fighting.
I think that's the thing. We need to remember that every child deserves an education, and every child needs a place to belong, and and we do know our own kiddos the best, and regardless of what anyone else says, we know what works and what doesn't.
And I think, the other thing for all three of them is giving them the space to unmask, really, to let them feel safe and know that it's okay not to keep masking. Our daughter particularly, her diagnosis of ADHD came significantly later than her twin brothers, because again, we couldn't get the school to see that she was struggling. And to get her a diagnosis, we needed her to be able to walk into the pediatrician and say, here is what I'm struggling with, and here are the strategies I'm using to mask. Basically.
Yeah, but our kiddos don't know that, right? Like, even we don't know that.
And it's not, and I knew that there was a challenge for her when she was 5, and she told me that she couldn't behave at home because she'd use it all up at school. She literally said to me,
"That's so insightful."
It's so insightful. It wasn't the wording, but it was. She was saying, "I'm using every drop of energy I have to do what's expected of me at school. I can't do it at home. It's done. I have no spoons left."
Yep.
But
yeah,
and I think
that's what Liz is said before, about her son.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess the other thing I keep trying to teach them from young is also to self-advocate.
Mm,
Unfortunately, we're not at school with them all day, every day. They can certainly
yes.
come home and tell us about it and we will contact the right people. But
Yeah. Great.
there's something that's not working and they feel like comfortable to go to a teacher or support someone and say, this is the challenge I'm having. This is something I think might help. Do
Yeah.
it. That,
Yeah.
telling people what works for you is never a bad thing.
No, exactly. Advocacy is one of definitely our
It's-
passions here at Kaboose as well.
So that being able to self-advocate and I want them to rely on me to a point, but I also, I guess, have that insight having watched many students transition from high school to university who sit there going,
Mm,
I don't know. They've never thought about it for themselves. They've always had someone just do it for them.
mm,
And then suddenly they're an adult and their parents don't have the right to their information anymore or the right to talk about them without their consent. So
exactly.
building their skills and being able to sort of reflect on that stuff from early, I feel is really helpful to them.
Yeah. I think it's such an important skill that we teach our kids, and not just then, university, but in work. My son has hurt his finger at work and he's having to advocate with work cover and, with the doctors, and when you're going to medical appointments, being able to advocate. So I think, Camilla, it's, definitely a skill. And Liz here says, well said, I'm a parent, educator and business with a business background. Teachers I have worked with don't always see the behaviours. Closing the gap is important. So definitely important there. When you're talking about the kids, I guess, can you share with us how you support them with their well-being? Because it must be, as you said, your daughter maybe using up all of her spoons at school, the twins. How do you support their well-being as well as manage your own as a family?
With great difficulty sometimes, but
Yes.
also looking for what's available in the community to help us. We've definitely sort of, reached out and engaged with Headspace because, unfortunately, we know services are expensive and having the option to get them support that doesn't have an additional cost is sometimes helpful. But
Mm,
also using some of, I guess, the tools I am learning in my own work of, helping them use grounding techniques and various things along the
mm,
way. And I mean, really trying to get them to connect with their own emotions and, being very open and about mine,
mm.
you know, so that they can see it's okay to feel what you feel. There's no
Yes.
judgment about it. You're not in trouble if you're stressed and anxious or feeling panicky. It's okay. Let's look at ways to help you feel better.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I think validating, it's one thing we learned actually with this very special OT I mentioned before with my son. Unfortunately, was in hospital with mental distress for quite a lot of his high school years. And we had this beautiful OT who really worked on naming those emotions and also teaching us as parents to name ours, because quite often you're so caught up in supporting the young person that you forget that actually it's helpful for them to hear and for us to verbalize how we feel, because they sometimes don't recognize the emotions in us.
Yeah.
Sarah says, thanks for the insights re fidgeting to help with focus and concentration. She's curious whether playing mobile games falls into the fidget category to help with focus and concentration. My 17-year-old son with ADHD can focus better when listening to us while playing mobile phone games, or is it just a distraction to be discouraged? What are your thoughts on
For
that?
some people, it works. I mean, I know, again, some students who tell me they can't possibly sit in a lecture at the university without like cat videos going on in the corner, that they need that
Yes.
diverted attention to be able to actually focus, that their
Mm,
brain just needs the novelty of having two things going on at once to really be able to take it in. That there's one thing that
yes.
sort of doing without really being engaged with it to be able to have your full attention
Mm.
on the more important thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I consider that almost, it's what I'd call a brain fidget, a mental fidget rather than a physical one. And yeah, it's very
Yeah.
much for some people that is the thing that works. And so,
Mm.
yeah, as I said, I'm very much a no judgment. It's come as you
Yeah.
are, do what you need to do to get to where you want to be.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think it might also be the generation, the type, because I like things more physical. And I know Carmela, when she reads, she likes to hold books rather than Kindle? Was it
Kindle.
e-reader or something like that? Yeah. And I prefer things more, physical. But I guess as the younger generation, when they were born with an iPad or a screen, maybe that works for them better.
Yeah. Look, I think again, I think, with our neurodivergent brains, we all are wired differently. And I know my daughter, she will say the same as what Camilla said. She needs something going on in the background while she's doing, the maths problems. And she'll have the TV on and she'll do maths. And I'll think, my goodness, I can't think with that. I like quiet. But
Yeah.
music, TV, other people tell me the same thing. And I think it's fascinating, I think, to just, hear the different experiences. Yet if we talk to neurotypical people, in fact, today I had a conversation with someone who said that there's research, that small kids don't learn empathy if they're playing games all the time. And I'm like, well, yes, probably that piece of research was done with, neurotypical people. And so it's just different, I think, when you start to think about, well, why are we using them? I know my son uses those tap things, games on his phone. And if he's anxious in any way, like this tap thing, he'll just keep tapping it. And it's like counting things, or it's, a bit like that Candy Crush thing in a way. It's like the tapping of something. It's stimulating the brain in some way. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So back to the study. So you mentioned, that, you had to teach yourself how to study. If you had to go back to study, what advice would you give your younger self about learning and,
Take medication.
dealing with the challenges?
I think that, studying without medication was hard, but again, back then there was not available. Look, it's hard to say, going back and seeing what I did wrong, but I think that it made me the person that I am today. And I started uh, the landscaping and gardening by myself, and I made it, I made it quite successful, I think. And then I started recently, the neurodivergent, the website and stuff, and I'm working hard on that. And I think changing things wouldn't necessarily be better. I think that, life has a way of making itself work in certain things. Some things, obviously, I wish I would be, I feel like I would want to be better in sitting down and focusing for longer than half an hour, 45 minutes at a time. But, again, I know now that I can sit for a certain amount of time. I need a 5-minute break. Then I'm on it again. So I've worked on myself to find those holes or those gaps that I know that I'm missing in order to
Mm.
get better. Or, in class, I studied at TAFE as well, and I spent, I think, all up 7 years on learning different subjects and different things. And, it was hard, but sitting further in front of the class, because when I sat back at school and I couldn't hear, and the noise, you mentioned as well, you need the quiet to focus. Me too. I need
Mm.
quiet, absolute quiet. And sometimes I held my hand to my ears in order to read something that I was struggling to focus, and I had to read it 4, 5, 6 times in class until
Mm.
I got it in. And then I
Mm.
figured out that it's the noise. So if you go further forward and you see the wall and you have less distraction because of the kids at the back, you might get a little bit more information in. our daughter, she goes with headphones to school because sometimes with the sensory, the noise, it gets too overwhelming. She puts it on, she decompresses, and then she's ready to go again. She goes with it. I think it's accepted. Like they're not.
I think these days it's much more acceptable, and we talk a lot about it here at Kaboose about workplace adjustments and headphones and those sorts of things. I think it's becoming more acceptable, but of course there's still a long way to go. And I look back and I think sometimes, teachers, they haven't really understood that some kids do need that quiet. They do need to sit somewhere where they can hear so they're not distracted by all the other things. And if you have to read something more than once, you're left behind while they've all moved on. And yet, and probably you could have, been at the same level or the same pace, but they've rushed through, not really understanding.
Yeah. Look, it was hard, but then year 11, year 12, I studied electrical engineering, and that's not easy subject. And there's a lot of
Not at all.
math, and I studied some chemistry and some physics, and that's a lot of math and a lot of things that I'm not good at so much. Math is quite challenging. All those like trigonometry was much better than other things. But
Mm.
the repetitive, the quiet times. Sometimes I had a private tutor, but when it's one-on-one, the information flows much better. So if you're willing to put in the time, just because you have learning difficulties doesn't mean that you're not going to succeed.
Mm.
And I had good grades, and after that, like it's you can do it if you want to and if you believe in yourself.
Mhm.
I think so. If Carmella said the kids advocating, for themselves and stuff, but if that doesn't work, I always tell the kids that our job is to protect them and make sure that they're happy. And if they're not telling us, we can't do our job. So if the kids, if there are parents out there that the kids come to them and talk to them, and then that's the way that we can help them, for them to learn better and get
Mm.
either it's less bullied or or better results or whatever it is,
Mm.
that's our job in life, to help them.
Exactly. Yeah. You've sort of mentioned a little bit through the conversation about, um, you know, taking breaks. But do you find having a routine or structure helpful, or is it, more flexible when you're trying to maintain focus? How do you
Uh,
manage your life and your businesses, Gil?
so my focus way is organized chaos, and I can just relate to in the landscaping that last week I worked with a friend of mine who is a landscaper, and he told me the morning of the job that he wants me to do, because we work together, and he saw it as me jumping from place to place. So one tree and then going this way and going another tree, and then not working in the order that he thought was good for him. And he got a little bit, not upset, but he said, "How do you work like this?" And I said, "I know myself that I do something and it gets a little bit, I don't know if the right word is boring, but it gets a little bit sort of fuzzy, and I need something new. So I go do something else, continuing in the garden, do a different part of the garden. In the meantime, my guy was cleaning the mess that I've made. And then I went and I started another thing. And for me, that's how I work. I'm happy to bounce around and do. It's not creating more work, because I know how to do the right order. So we're not doing twice, making a mess twice and cleaning twice. But
No. Yes,
that's
it all gets done in the end.
yeah, but that's the way that it worked. To me, it seems perfectly, good to go from place to place. But
Yes.
he didn't acknowledge that. So, but I said to him at the end, I said, "Listen, it's gonna get done. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna work." And
Mm.
at the end, he was happy. So if it
Yeah.
works for you and it works for other people, just let it do whatever works.
Yeah, we had a similar situation at home here a few months ago when we were doing some tidy up, and I started in one part of the house, and then I went to do something in the other part and I thought, oh, I'll just do this bit. And then I went back there and then my partner came and said, why is there all of these things started? And I'm like, oh, well, because I started here and then I took something here and I thought I'd do that bit. And, but I had a plan, a rough plan in my head.
I have a plan as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It all happens in its own good time.
Yeah. I have there was a question before about the kid that like the 17-year-old.
Yes.
And they said his parents said that they like cooking. I love cooking as well. And I find that cooking
Great.
calms me down. So when I like to cook, I'm happy to be by myself in the kitchen and put some music that I like to hear or listen to, whatever it is at the time, and just go away and I don't go at it. And I think that part of the thing that I mentioned before, the ADHD, that I'm happy to try different things. And again, sometimes Carmella she said, that's not for me. But, I like the challenge. So I try different things and some of them are more challenging than others. And some of them, this is the first time that I'm trying them. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I like to give it a shot. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's a great advice. So Liz, if maybe that's something you can do to encourage your son to maybe, have the downtime in the kitchen. So I think the other thing is that downtime, the way neurodivergent people think of downtime is quite different to neurotypical downtime. And so sometimes for us, we still need to be doing something with our hands. And, cooking is, sometimes that downtime, as long as you're able to do it in a, sensory friendly way that suits you.
Yep.
So how else do you carve out time to recharge then? Cooking sounds like one of those things. How do you
I recently, again, part of the things with the hyper-focused is that I recently started enjoying running. I was never a runner. I was a sailor and I was on the national team when I was younger. And that's, again, part of the hyper-focused. So being focused on one thing. And now I've taken on myself running. So I started like running and I'm racing now. I have here and there, I have in 3 weeks, I have a half a marathon.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I'm working hard on that. And then, running 3-4 times a week and practicing. And sometimes Carmella doesn't like that I disappear because it's very time consuming. But again, when you go out and you see the different scenery and I put music on and it's just you and the road and the thing, and it relaxes me and it gets me out of even if it gets you out of the house for an hour and just to see something different. And then you come home and you're ready to go, ready to cook dinner for the kids.
Amazing. And I suppose just, we're coming towards the end. So anyone listening, feel free to continue to pop your questions in the chat. But if someone is just starting out, to explore focus tools or stress strategies, what do you suggest they do to start with? And Camilla, you could answer this one too.
It's for a child or for a parent?
Yeah, you could give one for each.
I think that for me, the first step has always been sort of figuring out what it is that you respond to. So as I said, so for me, I've found, and I've always found that having weight is really important. So when I'm looking for tools, I'm looking for things that are heavier. I don't like if they're plastic and they feel light and things, they don't really help me. So for me, even if I'm looking online, I'm always looking for, things that are metallic and are going to have some weight and be heavy. But then other people obviously don't like the tactile of the metal. So, thinking about those things of, is there, sensitivity to tactile? What sort of sensations do you or don't you like? And using that sort of information as you look at things and sort of trying to, and sometimes it's hard to do online. I'll be really honest and say that. Like sometimes like being able to get in there and touch it and feel it and say, that works for me. No, that doesn't. For some people, I guess in some places, I know people have sort of said sort of hard plastics are their safest because they tend to be smoother and things, but also tend to break faster often.
I guess it varies with each, person. And, going back to sensory stuff, when I was growing up, I didn't like anything that was too tight. So I always wore my dad's t-shirts. It was always touching my knee, and I didn't like socks. I didn't like how it felt on my legs, and I didn't like buttons. I never had growing up buttoned shirt because I didn't like how it felt on my body. So I was weird. I guess people saw it as weird, and people didn't understand it. So I think that if someone feels something confident with something, then, continue and look at that direction. Yeah. Because each person is different.
Each person is different. Yeah. I, as I said, I like, my little wooden bit because it sort of moves around a bit, but, it's not really one you can carry very far because it's a bit, broken and what have you. But, in the pocket, sometimes having those, little fidget rings, can be really helpful. What do you think, to wrap up, what do you think the ultimate focus toolkit is for neurodivergent adults or kids? I used to have like sensory boxes for the kids, which, but they're all grown up now, so they have their own strategies. But do you have any major tips for our listeners?
I really wouldn't I guess, and again, I used to build them as an OT, and every
Yeah.
single toolkit I built was different and it was tailored, and and so I can't say there's ever an ultimate because every brain, what
Yeah.
every person
Right.
responds to is different. And it's about,
Yeah.
for me, it used to be about, those sensory profiles and what things do, are positive experiences
Yes.
and which ones aren't, and what
Yeah.
are you looking to gain from the toolkit as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess people need to come and feel, right? People
yeah,
come and need to see and feel for themselves and see what
Yes.
they feel comfortable with, because every different one is for
Mm.
different situation and different person.
Yeah, exactly. I remember some of the OTs wanting to sort of do the smell kind of things. And for me, I have a very strong sense of smell, and I really hate like jasmine smells and those very strong smells. And so if you put one of those in my toolkit, that would be a big fail.
Lavender.
I'm actually
Lavender.
to lavender.
See?
She doesn't, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it just goes to show, I think, that, there's not it's not a one size fits all. So, well, if there are no last minute questions, we'll maybe just, if there's any last minute questions, pop them in the chat. But while we wait for any last minute questions, just a huge thank you for coming onto our Divergent discussion. And we would love to pop your website details out to the world. So we'll send those out to the audience. And just a reminder to everyone, we have another discussion coming up on Monday where we're talking about neurodivergent relationships with the Instagram couple, Lauren and Tom from NeuroDuo. We soon, also next week, have Rebecca McCash coming on, a young woman from Sydney, talking about wellbeing in neurodivergent people. And that'll be on the first week in September. And you can get those tickets through the app or Humanitix. And if you paid for a ticket tonight, you'll get the replay via email. For those who want to go back to the replays, you can visit our website as well to get those. So we're getting lots of thank yous in the chat, Gil and Carmella. So thank you. Sarah says, thank you very much for a great session. It was very helpful. Megan, thank you for your generous time and information. It's been so helpful. Many things that I can relate to. And Liz has also said that the kitchen is a social space, but she's thinking about maybe having some non-peak periods, so quiet cooking, which is a great idea, a bit like quiet shopping. I fully support that idea, Liz, if you can make that happen. Well, thank you again, both of you, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
That's okay. And we'll look forward to sharing your website with the audience. And hopefully, I think I'll be looking for that one that you've got there, Gil. I quite like
Magnets,
the look
yeah.
of that. Yes, I like the idea of the magnets. So I'll look out for that one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.